My name is Serena Caldwell. I'm 31. And I used to believe that if you built a relationship carefully enough, 4 years of consistency, 1 year of engagement, a wedding date circled so many times it felt branded into our calendar, then the worst thing that could happen was nerves. Not betrayal. Not the kind of betrayal that announces itself with a punchline. We were 2 weeks away from getting married when everything blew up in the most spectacular way possible. My fiancé, Evan Brooks, went on his bachelor weekend to this beach resort with his groomsmen. 3 days of sun, alcohol, and the kind of last hurrah energy that makes people act like commitment is a prison sentence instead of a choice. I stayed home. Work had piled up. End of quarter deadlines. The boring adult stuff. And honestly, those trips weren't my scene. I didn't like the idea of paying hundreds of dollars to stand around in sandals watching men pretend they were still 22. We'd built something solid, or at least I thought we had. Evan wasn't a bad actor in public. He knew how to look devoted. He held doors. He remembered my coffee order. He kissed my temple when I was stressed, like that one gesture was a bandage for everything. And I believed him. Thursday night, late, I was in bed scrolling Instagram with the lights off, my phone the only glow in the room. The apartment was quiet in that sleepy way, dishwasher humming, air conditioner clicking on and off, the whole place breathing around me like it trusted me to keep it safe. A story popped up from one of Evan's groomsmen, Drew. Drew was that guy, loud, always drinking too much, always leaning into jokes that were only funny if you weren't the target. At our engagement party, he'd grabbed the microphone and told a story about Evan finally locking down a woman who kept him from ruining his life. Everyone laughed. I laughed too, because that's what you do when you don't want to look sensitive. So when Drew's story loaded, I expected the usual. Shirtless beach photo, casino table, somebody doing something stupid on a balcony. Instead, I saw a bar, a crowded, neon-lit place with sticky floors and too many bodies squeezed into one frame. Evan and the guys were in the center, faces flushed, eyes glassy, arms slung over shoulders, like they'd all fused into one loud organism. Normal bachelor stuff. But the caption made my stomach drop so hard it felt like I'd missed a step on a staircase. Last night with his side girl before he locks down the rich one. Evan was tagged. So were 2 other groomsmen. And there were laughing emojis like this was adorable, like this was the kind of story people tell later over brunch. My eyes flicked across the words again and again, like maybe I'd misread them. But the letters stayed in place. Side girl. Rich one. My thumb went numb. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, loud as a warning siren. I wasn't even rich. Rich. I had a good job, comfortable salary. I owned my condo. I had savings because I wasn't reckless. I didn't come from money. I built stability with my own hands. But rich wasn't the point, was it? The point was what it revealed, how Evan was being framed when I wasn't in the room. Not as someone loved, as someone acquired. I didn't think. I moved. Screenshot. My phone made that tiny shutter sound that felt obscene in the silence, like it had just caught someone naked. I stared at the image saved in my camera roll, my finger hovering as if I expected it to vanish like smoke. I refreshed the story. Gone. Maybe 20 seconds total. Just long enough to change my life. I sat up in bed, the sheets tangling around my legs, and for a moment, my first instinct rose like bile. Call him. Demand answers. Scream. Cry. I even opened his contact. My thumb hovered over the green phone icon. And then, like a voice from somewhere older and colder, I heard my mother's words from years ago, after she left my dad. Once you know the truth, pretending you don't doesn't save you. It just delays the hurt and doubles the humiliation. So I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't give Evan the chance to rehearse a lie. I slid out of bed, walked into the living room, and opened my laptop like I was clocking into a job. Our wedding lived in shared folders, spreadsheets, contracts, vendor contacts, payment schedules. I'd paid for most of it, around $45,000. Venue, catering, photographer, band, florist, big-ticket items that made our wedding feel real to everyone else. Evan had handled smaller things, decorations, favors, the bachelor trip deposits, some miscellaneous stuff. He liked to talk about how we were splitting everything. We weren't, but I didn't care about the imbalance until that moment, until I realized I wasn't his partner. I was his plan. I started emailing vendors one by one. Same message over and over, calm and professional, like my world wasn't collapsing in real time. Circumstances have changed. We need to cancel the event. Please confirm cancellation and provide the final invoice per contract terms. I checked contracts as I went. The venue, non-refundable at this point. Caterer, 50% cancellation clause. Photographer, deposit kept. Band, deposit kept. Florist, deposit kept. The numbers stacked up, ugly but clear. $22,000 to $25,000 lost. My hands didn't shake. That's the part that scares people when I tell them later. Because I wasn't panicking. I was empty. Like something inside me had snapped cleanly instead of tearing. Cheaper than marrying a cheater, I thought. Cheaper than divorce. Cheaper than children with someone who could look me in the eye and still keep a side girl like a hobby. When I finished the vendor emails, it was past midnight. The apartment was still quiet, still trusting, still unaware it had just been spared an intruder. Then I opened Instagram. I made a new post. I tagged everyone invited to the wedding. Both families, friends, co-workers, that aunt who'd already asked about hotel blocks, that cousin who'd sent a gift early because she was so excited. I uploaded the screenshot. Clear as day. Drew's caption right there for the world to see. And I wrote one sentence. Weds off. See above for why. Sorry to everyone who made plans or bought gifts. The groom can explain the rest. My finger hovered over share for half a second. Not because I wasn't sure. Because I knew that once I did it, there would be no way back into the polite fiction. Then I posted. And the moment it went live, a strange calm settled over me. Like I'd finally stopped trying to hold water in my hands. I turned my phone off completely. No notifications, no buzzing, no chorus of people begging me to be quiet and convenient. And I went to bed. I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I turned my phone back on, and it was like waking up to an explosion. Calls, texts, voicemails, DMs, missed calls stacked so high the screen blurred with them. My post had hundreds of comments already. I made coffee, slow and deliberate, like I was honoring some routine that belonged to the woman I used to be. Then I started listening. Evan's mother, furious. How dare you humiliate my son like this? Call me right now. Evan's father, clipped and dangerous. I want an explanation for this garbage you posted, now. My own mom, trembling. Oh, sweetheart, is this real? What happened? Evan's sister. It was a joke. Delete that post immediately. Then Evan. His messages came in waves. Confused first, then enraged, then pleading. Call me now. This is a misunderstanding. You're insane. If you just talk to me, I can explain. Not once did he text, I didn't cheat. That omission felt louder than any confession. And then, my favorite part, if you can call anything about that day favorite, a voicemail from Drew. Timestamp 3:07 a.m. His voice was thick, sloppy, drunk enough to be honest. Oh God, Serena, I'm so sorry. I was wasted. That wasn't supposed to go up. It was an inside joke. You weren't supposed to see it. Please don't ruin his life over this. He does love you. He took a breath that sounded like he was trying not to throw up. Okay, the side girl thing is real, but it's not serious. It's just like, for fun. Everybody does it. Please just talk to him. Please. I stared at my phone as if it had teeth. Inside joke. Side girl is real. Everybody does it. I saved the voicemail. Then I backed it up 3 different places because something in me understood, before my heart fully caught up, that truth wasn't enough anymore. Truth had to be protected. Evan called 8 times in a row. I didn't answer. I replied once, only once. Nothing to explain. We're done. Don't contact me. And when the next call came through, I blocked him. I stood in my kitchen, holding a mug I didn't remember pouring, watching the city move outside my window like it was any other Friday. But my life had already split into 2 versions of myself. The woman who believed love meant safety, and the woman who had just learned that sometimes love is a stage and you only realize you're the punchline when someone posts it for laughs. I didn't know yet how far Evan and his family would take this. I only knew one thing. They were going to try to make me regret telling the truth, and I wasn't planning to be quiet enough to let them win. Friday became a paperwork day, except the paperwork was my life. I sat at my dining table with my laptop open, coffee gone cold, and the kind of steady breathing you have when your body knows panic won't help. Every vendor email I'd sent the night before started coming back with replies, attachments, and cheerful little lines like, "We're sorry to hear that," typed by people who had no idea they were watching a collapse from behind a reception desk. The venue confirmed immediately. Deposit forfeited. $12,000. Seeing the number in writing should have made me flinch. Instead, I felt this grim clarity settle deeper into my ribs. 12 grand was a lot of money. But marrying a man who could label me the rich one while keeping a side girl like a side hobby, that would have cost me my dignity, slowly, yearly, with interest. The caterer tried to get cute. Their coordinator called me instead of emailing, voice syrupy with faux concern. Serena, we're just shocked. Are you sure there's no way to reconsider? The contract says... I know what the contract says, I cut in, calm enough to scare myself. It says 50% of the remaining balance. That's what you're getting. A pause. Then the shift. The moment people realize you're not emotionally negotiable. They backed down, confirmed the cancellation, sent the invoice. The photographer kept the deposit. The band kept theirs. The florist kept hers. A few vendors threw in small mercies. A waived fee here, a reduced penalty there, like strangers trying to hand me tissues without making eye contact. By late afternoon, my final estimate sat in a neat row on my spreadsheet. Lost approximately $23,000. Cheaper than divorce. Cheaper than shame. Cheaper than waking up 10 years from now, realizing I'd married someone who thought loyalty was a joke that only mattered if I found out. While I was doing all that, the outside world was burning. My phone, now powered on but heavily filtered, kept lighting up with blocked notifications and attempted calls from new numbers. Evan didn't just want a conversation. He wanted access. And when he couldn't get it, he started sending people. First, it was his sister, Brooke. Her text arrived as if she were mediating a dispute over borrowed clothes. Brooke, Serena, take the post down. This is humiliating. Brooke, Drew was drunk. It was a stupid joke. Brooke, you're blowing up your own life too, you know. I stared at that last line, the way she'd framed it like I was the one holding the match. Then Evan's mother left another voicemail. You're vindictive, she hissed. Do you know what people are saying? Do you understand what you've done to our family? Your family. Like my heart wasn't part of the debris. Like I wasn't the one who'd been tagged in that caption as if I were a bank account with legs. Then my mom called, again and again, until I answered. Sweetheart, she said, voice tight with worry. Talk to me, please. Tell me what's happening. I didn't want to say it out loud, because saying it out loud would make it real in a way the screenshot still hadn't. But I did anyway. I saw a post, I said, a groomsman. He called me, the rich one. Silence. Then my mom's inhale, sharp like she'd been slapped. And Evan? He hasn't denied anything, I said, not once. He just keeps saying it's a misunderstanding. The word misunderstanding had started to taste like poison. Misunderstanding meant, if you were a better woman, you'd accept a lie as long as it was packaged kindly. By Saturday, the pressure shifted from rage to emotional warfare. Evan's best friend, Caleb, called me like he was stepping into a counselor role. He's been crying for 2 days, Caleb said. He can't eat, he can't sleep. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was such a familiar tactic. Make the person who got hurt responsible for the person who did the hurting. He should try being the one blindsided, I said. Serena, Caleb pleaded, the side girl thing isn't what you think. It's probably, I don't know, a friend, a dumb joke. The voicemail says otherwise. Caleb went quiet. I could practically hear him recalculating. She has proof. This isn't just emotion. This is evidence. You can't hold drunk words against people, he tried. Watch me, I said. Then he went to the next bargaining chip like he'd been handed a script. What about the ring? The engagement ring. The one Evan had insisted on buying for me, but had quietly suggested we count it as part of our shared wedding budget. It was always like that with Evan, generosity that came with a ledger. She can keep it, I said, then corrected myself because the truth mattered. He can keep it, sell it, melt it down, I don't care. Caleb exhaled like that answer offended him. You're being unreasonable. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the condo I'd paid for, the life I'd built, the future I'd been about to sign away. I'm unreasonable, I said softly. He was planning to marry me while keeping someone else on the side. You don't know that for sure. I felt something cold and sharp settle behind my teeth. Then why hasn't he denied it? I asked. He's texted me 100 times, called 50 times. Not once has he said I didn't cheat. He says it's a misunderstanding. He says I'm overreacting. He says I'm crazy. But he never says he didn't do it. The silence on the other end was so long it felt like time dilated. Finally, Caleb said quieter. Okay. That one word told me everything. I ended the call. Sunday morning, the email arrived. Not from Evan. Not from Brooke. From a lawyer. Subject line, demand for reimbursement. Wedding expenses incurred in good faith. It was typed like a threat wearing a suit. They wanted $47,000. dress, alterations, bridal shower, bachelor weekend costs, invitations, decorations, emotional distress, defamation, fraudulent inducement. Oh, fraudulent inducement. As if I'd tricked Evan into cheating. I read it twice, then forwarded it to my friend from law school, Miles Grant, who'd once told me he survived contracts class by pretending every case was a reality show. He called me back within 10 minutes, laughing. "Serena," he said, still chuckling, "this is the funniest demand letter I've read all year." "They're serious," I said. "Oh, they're dead serious," Miles replied. "They're also dead wrong. Infidelity is absolutely grounds to end an engagement. They can write all the dramatic adjectives they want. It doesn't change reality." My throat tightened, the relief coming in slow, like warmth after frostbite. "So what do I do?" "I'll respond," Miles said. "Tell them to kick rocks in fancy legal language. Pro bono, because this is entertaining." I almost smiled. Almost. Then his tone shifted. "Keep the voicemail. Keep the screenshot. Document everything. Every call. Every text. Every time Evan contacts you after you've told him to stop." "Why?" I asked. A pause. "Because this might escalate." I frowned. "Escalate how?" Miles sighed like I was asking why storms had thunder. "Serena, you publicly humiliated their son. You cost them money. You embarrassed their family. People like this don't just take the loss. They look for a way to make you pay." I told myself I understood. I didn't. Not yet. Because the very next morning, Monday, my doorbell camera pinged. I was brushing my teeth, hair twisted into a messy knot, when my phone lit up with a live feed. Evan was at my door. He looked wrecked, eyes swollen, jaw shadowed with scruff, hair like he'd been running his hands through it all night. He was wearing the hoodie I'd bought him last winter, the one he'd called the soft one. For a split second, some stupid, tender instinct tried to rise. Then Evan started pounding. Not knocking, pounding. "Serena," he shouted, "I know you're in there." I spat toothpaste into the sink, hands steady, and hit the intercom button. My voice came out colder than I expected. "Go away." His head snapped up toward the camera like he could see me through it. "We need to talk," he said, voice cracking. "You can't just throw away 4 years like this." I felt something inside me go completely still. "You threw it away," I said, "not me." "It was one mistake," he pleaded. "One night. You're ending everything over one stupid night." There. Right there. The sentence that made my skin prickle. One mistake. One night. A confession tucked inside a plea. My stomach turned, not from shock anymore, but from certainty. I hit record on my phone as well. Belt and suspenders, just like Miles would say. "So you're admitting you cheated," I said, calm, deliberate. Evan's face twisted like he'd just realized he'd stepped into a trap, one I hadn't even set with malice, only with truth. "That's not," he stammered. "I didn't mean, Serena, we were basically on a break." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "We were engaged," I said. "We were planning our wedding. We were living together until last month. We were not on a break." Evan's eyes flashed. The begging cracked, and underneath it, the anger showed, like the real him surfacing. "You're being ridiculous," he snapped. "Relationships are about forgiveness. You're supposed to fight for us." I stared at the screen, watching his mouth shape the words like he was entitled to them. "I'm supposed to marry someone who respects me," I said. "That's not you." Evan slammed his palm against my door hard enough to make the camera shake. "I'm not leaving," he said. "Not until you talk to me face to face like an adult." My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't rise. But something in me, something ancient and protective, clicked into place. "Then I'm calling the police," I said. Evan scoffed like he didn't believe I would. So I did. When the officers arrived 15 minutes later, Evan was sitting on the ground outside my door, crying into his hands, like he was the victim of my cruelty instead of his own choices. One officer knocked gently. I opened the door with the chain still on, keeping my body hidden behind it. "Ma'am," he said, professional but tired. "He says you're engaged." "We were," I corrected, past tense. Evan looked up, eyes red. "Serena." I held up my phone. "I told him not to contact me," I said. He came anyway. The officer asked to see the texts. I showed him my message. "Don't contact me. We're done." The officer nodded, then turned to Evan. "Sir," he said, firm, "she's asked you to stop contacting her. You need to leave." Evan's face twisted with disbelief. "We were living together," he argued. "This is my relationship, too." The officer's partner glanced down at a tablet. "Property records show the condo is solely in her name," she said. "You need to go. If you come back, she can file for a restraining order." Evan stared at my door like it had betrayed him, like I had. But the only betrayal here was his. stacked up in screenshots and admissions, and the way he still couldn't say the simplest sentence. I didn't cheat. He left, eventually, shoulders hunched, walking like a man who wanted pity more than forgiveness. I thought that would be the peak, the explosion, the last scene. I was wrong. Because that afternoon, my office security desk called my extension. Serena? The guard said, voice strained. There's a man downstairs demanding to see you. He says he's your father-in-law. I closed my eyes. Not father-in-law. Not anymore. I swallowed. Evan's dad, I said. Tell him I'm unavailable. A pause. He's refusing to leave, the guard said. He's getting loud. My stomach sank, not in fear, but in recognition. Miles was right. This wasn't over. They weren't trying to understand. They were trying to punish me for refusing to stay quiet. I grabbed my badge, stood up, and felt the calm leave my body like a tide pulling back before a wave. Because when people like Evan's family lose control of the narrative, they don't apologize. They escalate. And I was about to meet exactly how far they were willing to go. When I reached the lobby, Evan's father was already shouting. Not pacing, not arguing quietly, shouting. His voice ricocheted off the marble walls like he was trying to turn the building itself into a witness. There you are, he barked the second he saw me. Too much of a coward to face us directly? Security hovered nearby, tense but hesitant, the way people get when they know someone is about to cross a line but hasn't technically done it yet. There's nothing to face, I said, keeping my tone flat. Your son cheated. I ended the engagement. Tell him to stop contacting me. He stepped closer, fingers stabbing the air between us. You humiliated my entire family, he snarled. My wife can't show her face at church. People are whispering. My son is on medication because of what you did. Because of what I did. Not because of what Evan chose. That's unfortunate, I said evenly, but it's not my responsibility. His face went red. We spent thousands on that wedding, he shouted. Thousands! Your little stunt cost us everything. You should talk to your lawyer, I replied. Mine already has. That got his attention. He leaned in, voice low and poisonous. You arrogant little... Security stepped between us instantly. Sir, one guard said firmly, you need to leave now, or we're calling the police. Evan's father glared at me over the guard's shoulder. This isn't over, he spat. And then he was gone, dragged away by his own anger and the echo of his threat hanging in the lobby like smoke. By Wednesday, I started hearing from my friends. Not because they wanted updates, because Evan had found them. My phone buzzed with the text from my best friend, Lena. Lena, your ex has called me 6 times. Lena, says you won't listen. Lena, says he made a mistake and you're being cruel. Lena, what's the actual story? I sent her the screenshot. Then the voicemail. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Lena, oh. Lena, yeah, no. Lena, you did the right thing. She wasn't the only one. Evan called at least 10 of my friends. Same script, same wounded tone, same attempt to turn me into the villain of a story he'd already burned down. One by one, after seeing the evidence, they blocked him. The harassment escalated instead. New numbers texting me at all hours. You're heartless. You destroyed him. He loved you. You'll die alone. I blocked them all. They got new numbers. I filed a police report, not because I expected an arrest, but because documentation mattered now. Everything mattered now. The officer who called me back was sympathetic but blunt. Keep records, Pam, he said. If there are threats or he shows up again, call immediately. Right now, it's harassment, not a crime yet. Yet, I changed all my social media to private. Blocked Evan's family, blocked his friends, blocked anyone who might be a conduit. But I left the original post up, public, untouched. Because the truth doesn't disappear just because it makes people uncomfortable. Thursday afternoon, Miles called. They're filing, he said. I blinked. Filing what? Small claims, he replied. $12,000. That's the max here. For what? I asked, even though I already knew. Wedding expenses, he said. Dress, mother of the groom outfit, bachelor party, invitations, decorations, emotional distress, if they can squeeze it in. My chest tightened, not with fear, but with exhaustion. Can they win? Miles laughed. Absolutely not, but you have to show up. Bring everything. When? 6 weeks. 6 weeks. 6 weeks of waiting, while strangers argued about my morality online. Because while all of this was happening in my real life, the internet had decided to have opinions. My Instagram post crossed 1,000 comments. People shared it, screen recorded it, debated it. Some called me a hero. Others called me cruel, vindictive, immature, for airing private business. Someone stitched it into a TikTok that hit 300,000 views in 2 days. I watched my own life get flattened into content. Evan's friends started a coordinated harassment campaign. Comments, DMs, burner accounts. I didn't respond. Silence is infuriating to people who want control. Court day arrived 2 months after the screenshot. Evan's entire family showed up. Parents, siblings, grandmother, a couple of aunts and uncles. They filled the bench like they were attending a funeral. Somber, wounded, united. I sat on the other side with Miles. Just the two of us. When our case was called, Evan's father stood as their representative. The judge, a woman with tired eyes and no patience for theatrics, looked down at the paperwork. "You're suing for $12,000 in wedding expenses," she said, after the defendant canceled the wedding. "Yes, Your Honor," Evan's father said stiffly. "She canceled with less than 2 weeks' notice after we paid for everything. My daughter-in-law's dress alone was $4,000. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Why did she cancel?" He hesitated. "There was a disagreement," he said. "A personal matter." "What kind of disagreement?" the judge pressed. Evan's father shifted. "I don't think my son's private life should be—" "I'm asking why the wedding was canceled," the judge said sharply. Miles stood. "Your Honor," he said, "my client discovered evidence that her fiancé had been unfaithful. We have documentation." He handed over the screenshot. Then the voicemail transcript. The judge read slowly. The courtroom was silent, except for the rustle of paper. She looked up. "So," she said, turning to Evan's father, "your son was cheating." "That post was a joke," he snapped. "A drunk groomsman making a stupid joke." The judge tapped the voicemail transcript. "The groomsman admits it wasn't a joke," she said. "He admits there was a side girl." "He was intoxicated," Evan's father argued. The judge leaned back in her chair, unimpressed. "So your position," she said evenly, "is that your son was unfaithful, and you believe the defendant should have gone through with the marriage anyway, and paid for it, despite that." "He didn't have to humiliate us publicly," Evan's father said, voice cracking. "My son is in therapy. Our family has suffered." The judge didn't soften. "If your son didn't want people to know about his behavior," she said, "he shouldn't have engaged in that behavior." She looked at me. "Case dismissed." She didn't raise her voice. She didn't dramatize it. She just ended it. Outside the courthouse, Evan's mother cornered me in the parking lot. "I hope you're satisfied," she said, eyes burning. "My son is on antidepressants now. He had to quit his job. He's living at home." I met her gaze. "He ruined his own future," I said, "not me." "It was one mistake," she insisted. "Everyone makes mistakes." "And everyone lives with the consequences," I replied. Evan's sister stepped forward, face twisted with fury. "No decent woman will ever want you after this," she hissed. "Everyone knows you're vindictive." Miles laughed out loud. Actually laughed. "Lady," he said, shaking his head, "my client's gotten about 50 DMs from women saying they respect her for having standards. I think she'll be fine." That wasn't entirely true, but I didn't correct him. We walked away while Evan's family stood behind us, frozen in their outrage, already plotting their next move. Because I could feel it. This wasn't the end. They weren't done trying to rewrite me as the villain. And they were about to take their story somewhere even louder than court. Somewhere that never forgets. 3 weeks after the court case, just long enough for me to start sleeping through the night again, Evan found a new way to speak. He started a blog. I didn't find it on my own. I found out because my phone began lighting up with messages that all said some version of the same thing. "Is this about you? Have you seen what your ex wrote? I think someone is lying." The blog's title was Soft and Wounded, the kind of thing designed to sound brave, recovering from public humiliation. No names, no direct accusations. Just my story, rewritten until I barely recognized it. According to Evan, he had never cheated. The groomsman's post was a joke, a stupid, drunken exaggeration that I'd weaponized because I wanted out. I'd used social media to destroy his reputation. I'd stolen months of his life and tens of thousands of dollars from his family. He was now in therapy for depression and anxiety because of what I had done. The comments were full of sympathy. "Poor guy. Men don't get enough support. Public shaming is abuse. She sounds unstable." Some people went further. They asked for my name. They asked for my address. A few suggested I should be exposed. I sent the link to Miles. He skimmed it once, then shrugged. "It's all opinion," he said. "Nothing actionable. He's lying because he knows you have proof. He's trying to save face." That didn't make it feel smaller. Local bloggers picked it up. Lifestyle influencers shared it with captions about cancel culture and weaponized breakups. Think pieces started appearing in my Google search results alongside my name. When is public accountability too far? Was she justified or cruel? The internet didn't care about the answer. It cared about the argument. The hate messages started again. Someone found my LinkedIn and messaged my employer, claiming I was abusive and unstable and that the company should know what kind of person they employed. My boss called me in the next morning. "Got a weird message about you," she said, sliding her laptop across the desk. "Figured you'd want to see it." I didn't flinch. I showed HR everything. Screenshots, voicemail transcripts, court dismissal, police reports, harassment logs. The HR director nodded slowly. "This is clearly retaliatory," she said. "We'll document it. If anyone else contacts us, we'll refer them to legal." I walked out of that meeting feeling both protected and profoundly tired. The blog stayed up for 6 weeks. Then one day it vanished. No explanation. No update. Just gone. But the damage lingered. My Instagram post was still public, now with nearly 2,000 comments. People still found it, still shared it, still argued under it like it was a moral Rorschach test. I thought about deleting it. Miles told me not to. "It's your evidence," he said. "The second you take it down, he'll claim you made it all up." So it stayed. 4 months after everything exploded, I ran into Evan at a coffee shop. It wasn't dramatic. No confrontation. Just a moment of accidental eye contact over paper cups and espresso machines. He looked smaller. Not broken, not tragic. Just smaller. He looked away first. I grabbed my coffee and left, my hands steady, my heart quiet. That was the strangest part. It didn't hurt. It didn't satisfy. It just ended. Because closure doesn't come from a conversation. It comes from deciding you're done bleeding for someone who never protected you. I didn't date for a while after that. Not because I was scared of men, or love, or commitment, but because my nervous system needed to relearn what quiet felt like. I needed evenings that didn't buzz with notifications, weekends that weren't haunted by screenshots, mornings where my name wasn't a headline waiting to ambush me. 6 months passed before I said yes to anything that could be mistaken for a beginning. It was a friend's backyard barbecue, one of those casual, half-forgotten summer things where people bring folding chairs and drinks you don't need a corkscrew for. I almost didn't go. I almost stayed home and watched a show I'd already seen, just to avoid explaining myself. But I went. That's where I met Daniel Moore. He wasn't loud. He wasn't polished. He didn't perform charm like a skill he'd learned to monetize. He asked questions and actually waited for the answers. He laughed without scanning the room to see who noticed. On our third date, sitting across from each other in a quiet wine bar, he hesitated. "So," he said carefully, "I have to ask, that viral post about the canceled wedding, that was you, right?" I didn't bristle. I didn't rush to defend myself. I nodded. "Yeah. Do you want to tell me what happened?" So I did. I told him everything, start to finish. I showed him the screenshot. I played the voicemail. I explained the court case, the blog, the harassment. He watched quietly, jaw tight, eyes focused. When I finished, he sat back and exhaled slowly. "That must have been brutal," he said. "Finding out like that?" "It was," I said, "but it would have been worse later." He nodded. "You didn't have to post it publicly," he said. Not accusing, just honest. "No," I agreed, but I wasn't going to let him control the story. He cheated. I refused to be framed as the villain for reacting to it. Daniel studied me for a long moment. "I respect that," he said finally. "You have standards." Something in my chest loosened. We're still together now, over a year later. He's never given me a reason to doubt him. Not once. Trust feels different now. Not naive. Chosen. I heard through mutual friends that Evan started dating someone new a few months after the blog disappeared. A woman from work. They took it slow. He proposed less than a year later. They had a small courthouse wedding. I felt nothing. No bitterness. No jealousy. Just relief that it wasn't me. The Instagram post is still up. Probably always will be. People still comment sometimes. Most justified cancellation ever. This woman, saved herself. Harsh, but fair. My favorite comment showed up months after everything died down. "This isn't revenge. This is self-defense." That line stuck with me, because that's what it was. I lost about $25,000 in deposits and fees. I gained my self-respect. I dodged a lifetime of being married to someone who saw me as a wallet, a trophy, a safety net, anything but a partner. Every single cent was worth it.